Imagine one day you're given a car. You've never had a car before. This car does what you need it to. Functionally, there's nothing wrong with it. But something about it just doesn't feel right. Due to circumstances out of your control, you're also stuck with this car. So you make do until you find out you can make alterations that will help you be more comfortable with the car. This is like changing a few exterior features or parking in a better location for you, and you decide this might be a good option for you. Now, imagine being told by the mechanic that they can't make those alterations because the government has decided you have to stick with that car as it was given to you, regardless of your wishes and discomfort. Imagine if even the smallest alterations were enough to cause others and even the government to deny your very existence. You'd be really upset, especially if this car remaining as it was given to you has had emotional and psychological ramifications. Now imagine I wasn't talking about your car. Gender dysphoria is a feeling of distress or unease that can occur when a person's gender identity doesn't match their biological sex. It can cause a person to feel like their true identity is different from their assigned sex. We are taught at a young age that gender is determined by the X and Y chromosomes. Gender is far more complicated than that. For example, there are people with XXY chromosomal expressions. There are also female-presenting people who by all accounts are women who carry the XY chromosomes where the Y doesn't manifest any physical sign of masculinity. There are so many factors, biologically, genetically, and even psychologically, that go into determining where on the gender spectrum an individual falls that a binary simply doesn't apply. In the United States, about 0.6% of people experience gender dysphoria. We call them transsexuals, trans for short, gender fluid, even non-binary. This is around 1.4 million people. This number is rising not because people are suddenly deciding to change their gender identity on a whim, but because in past years, society has become generally safer to live authentically as who you are. Better yet, there are medical treatments and procedures that allow for people to transition to the gender they identify with as. When people get this support, they can live happy and healthy lives. Unfortunately, there are many examples of when the system and society fails these people. In 2024, a 16-year-old was attacked and beaten in a restroom because of their gender identity. The school nurse decided an ambulance wasn't necessary, but recommended they get further medical examination. Body cam footage shows a police officer discouraging the family from filing a police report, saying that it would open up the family to legal liability. The officer seemed more interested in protecting the bullies from dealing with a criminal situation for something so minuscule, quote unquote, even though Nex had been bullied for a full year before this attack. The next day, Nex collapsed in his home and was later pronounced dead. It's telling of the Owasso, Oklahoma community that this child's autopsy didn't include the attacks and was ruled a suicide due to undisclosed amounts of 2 medications. There was a one-page summary that otherwise did not explain why suicide was chosen as the cause. This community had systematic failures of care and protection in the school system, the police, and finally the coroner. 25 years earlier, the violence, hate, and societal failure affected all parts of the LGBTQI+ community. Matthew Shepard, Another victim died after being tied to a fence post and beaten by two men. This was an unforgivable act of hate and violence. The week before, he had been attacked in another senseless act of violence and LGBTQI plus hate. Then he was left to die. The Trump administration, through a day one executive order, removed White House websites that were made to honor and memorialize Next Benedict and Matthew Shepard. On Inauguration Day, Trump stood before a crowd of his sycophantic supporters and announced that in America there are only two genders. On that day, he began signing executive orders declaring this hateful statement as law and ending all DEI programs inside the federal agencies. An executive order, and a move even dumber than the Clinton eras, don't ask, don't tell policy, has banned all trans soldiers from serving, and Marco Rubio has put policies in place to block any new passport to be accepted if the gender chosen is X and not male or female. No word on how this will affect passport renewals. This is an all-out attack on an already marginalized part of the population. These policies can only lead to bad outcomes and the possibility of more violence. Ending DEI policies while openly targeted at the LGBTQI plus community has the potential to affect anyone who isn't a cis hetero white male. No one else is safe. There is no upside for anyone else. We are already seeing corporations reversing the progress made over the past decade for DEI initiatives. No job is secure for anyone who is considered to have gotten a job title if the one actually protected group disapproves. The military is not happy with the trans ban. Generals have stated clearly that this will significantly reduce the talent pool in key strategic positions, weakening the U.S. military in the name of hate. A weaker military leaves the U.S. and what few allies we will have left more vulnerable to attacks from nations who could take advantage of this blunder. The only reason to limit someone's ability to get an appropriate government ID is to limit their movement. Unofficially, even selecting the gender assigned at birth may not be enough to have a passport accepted. There are already reports of people following all of the steps they are told they need to follow and are still being rejected. It seems odd, since the bigots don't seem to want trans people here, that they are fighting so hard not to let them leave. Worse, if someone feels unsafe and needs to leave even for a short time, they can't. This means that if a person who is trans decides to seek asylum, their only option is to go to the border and hope our country's relationship doesn't block them. Also, it's not like everyone has the support and finances to get to a welcoming border. If passports can be blocked, does this also mean other forms of legal identification will be blocked as well? What happens if your license shows X as the gender? Can they arrest you? What about the problem of police brutality? If an officer is transphobic and uses a now invalid ID as a reason to arrest, some people may not live to see their freedom restored, if at all. If you have watched this far, I'm sure you may be thinking, this is all hyperbole. That there is no way that U.S. citizens would let things get this bad. Unfortunately, there is a significant portion of the voting population who voted for this, even after hearing his rhetoric of what Trump and his administration planned to do. The best thing we can do is be true allies for our LGBTQI plus friends and family. Stay educated. The issues on the issues, and just find ways to fight back. In these times, despair and apathy are privileges, and those are privileges we just can't afford. At this point, you have 4 tasks every day to build community, learn new skills, take care of others, and take care of yourself. If you are doing any of these 4 things, you are resisting. Please like and subscribe for more content like this. Ring the bell for updates. Thank you.